who were lynched in particular. If I want to focus on that for a moment. But there were far more black men that were hanged to death or doused with gasoline and torched by white mobs than women. And at the end of the day, I think that there is still a link to what was and what still remains. And some people get really upset when I say that. You know, I have had some white Facebook friends delete me, block me, which is fine because, again, I've got a list of about 300 or 400 more people who are just waiting to get on. So that's fine by me, you know, block me. But at the end of the day, what you have is, in my vantage point, I don't see a fundamental difference because, again, you're talking about a situation where for the first almost 256 years that black people existed here in either the colonies or the former United States of America, you know, obviously we were second-class citizens. We were three-fifths once we actually were freed. But even before then, we were three-fifths of a white person, which sometimes I just stop and think about that, how insidious that is. I mean, we like to talk about James Madison and Thomas Jefferson and these men as being these paragons of virtue and enlightenment, but they were actually sick. Each one of them was sick when it comes to the notion of white supremacy and believing that they were inherently greater individuals than we. And so when you stop and you recognize that, again, those documents, and the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and you recognize that even with the amendments that came following the Civil War and what have you, you've got people, man, who generally did not view us as full human beings. I mean, it's just like how when we're in Black History Month, or for most of us who are woke, there is no such thing as Black History Month, as Black History 365. But, you know, we post, we talk about, we debate, day in and day out. You know, you see the posters or the memes when people are talking about, you know, slave auctions or runaway slaves, things of that nature. And when you stop and you just sometimes analyze those, if you really read them and think about it, you recognize that these people really saw us as no better than the cow or the bull or the mule that they had out in their stables. Yeah. And I say, definitely didn't see us as worthy as their dogs. And I mean, and that's something that, you know, we talk about a little bit in jest, but I am deadly serious when I say to people all the time that here in these United States, there were more whites that were far more outraged by Michael Vick running a dog fighting ring than they were about any of the black men, women, and children who have been shot to death while being unarmed over the last 5 or 6 years. And so, yeah, man, at the end of the day, it just comes down to, you know, we want to talk about, you know, and they try to always put the onus on us in terms of, well, it's reverse racism, or we should look, you know, we should talk about it. Well, no, let's talk about it in reality. Let's not talk about it in some kumbaya, pat each other on the back. Let's be real about this. Many of you all don't see us as the same, or when they're dealing with folks like us, educated African-American men and women who understand the time, get what was, get what is, you know, that makes a lot of them nervous because at the end of the day, they don't like knowing that we know who they are. And see, it's not like black people didn't always know that. I mean, you know, my dad died 17 years ago. I'm fortunate to still have my mother alive. Right. No, they knew what it was during Jim Crow, as did our grandparents and our great-grandparents too. It's just they couldn't say out loud the things that we can say. Like, you know, there was a time that if you and me were on the radio back in 1950 talking like this, somebody might have been trying to string you up. They trying to string me up too. And again, it still doesn't mean that there might not be some people who somewhere still might try to snipe at us someday. But, you know, we'll deal with that if it comes that way, if it comes to that, when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, this generation and the generation that's coming behind us are no longer afraid to let our true thoughts be known. And man, that brings me into something else that just burns my ass all the time, which is, brother, I have been banned from Facebook 6 times, man, in the last 3 years. Man,
what is that about?
Man, I'm gonna tell you what it's about. They do not like any of us who are actually raising like these salient issues and discussing them in powerful and persuasive terms. Because again, a lot of times, man, I see myself as just like a moderator, as a facilitator. I put it out there, and I have got so many brilliant people like yourself who are committed folks who read and can discuss, and that bothers people. All right. And so you'll have some person who's sitting there, you know, Like, I just don't like what Chuck Hobbs is saying, and I don't like what they're saying on his page. And who are these uppity Negroes? Who do they think they are? They should be so happy that, blah, 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 and all this sort of bullshit, right? And so at the end of the day, what happens is that I post a lot of my stuff public because I want to get as much debate going as I possibly can. Yeah. And the next thing you know, there's some hater that's in the middle of the night. They'll report you to Facebook. And it's so funny, man, the way it goes down, and it actually makes me laugh, but it's frustrating, all right? Because what happens is, if you've never been suspended out there, folks, I'm going to tell y'all how it goes. So let's say I wake up in the morning and, I cut on my phone and I'm like, okay, let me go to Facebook to see what's jumping. All right, the minute you click on the app, like on your phone, what happens is it automatically logs you off. Wow. And so when you see it logging off, it's like, oh man, okay, what is it this time? It's no mystery anymore. I'm like, okay, I'm under some type of suspension, but what is it for? So then it'll log back on, force you to put your password in, and then once it does it, it will show you whatever the post is that's supposed to have been the offending post. Now, what really sucks is they don't tell you who the reporter is. You get where I'm coming from? So truth be told, as it stands right now, amongst the 5,000 friends and 15,000 followers are there about, man, people who have reported me in the past might still be lurking in the shadows. So that's why, man, it's one of those things where it's like, I got to just still follow my heart, do what I got to do. And that's one of the reasons I started my blog back in March, because I was like, you know what? I'm getting suspended about BS. I mean, I can scroll up and down timeline and I can see people posting fight videos. I can see people posting risque videos, women scantily clad, men scantily clad. I have seen it all. And those posts don't get flagged. Folks don't get suspended for that. But if I post something of a picture of Claude Neal being hanged after being lynched in a mob of 1,000 some odd whites in North Florida back in 1934, that's going to get me suspended. Or I got suspended one time because I posted a picture of an African-American woman who was serving as a wet nurse to a white child. And so one of her breasts was exposed and the white child was breastfeeding. And that got me like a 4-day suspension because that didn't meet with Facebook community standards. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, so a woman breastfeeding a white child doesn't meet community standards, but you can see all kind of knockout videos and quasi-sex videos, right? And that meets y'all community standards. So what it lets me know is that, okay, and I'm not trying to make it into some grand conspiracy, all right? I know that Facebook probably has some relatively lower paid because, hey, you're talking Silicon Valley, so they probably still are making a pretty decent wage out there. But they've got some relatively lower paid individual, probably a millennial who doesn't know whether to wind his ass or scratch his watch, who's sitting up and getting these reports. And this person probably has no idea about the historical significance of any of the things that I'm posting. And so you stop and they're like, okay, well, Jane Johnson over here says that it was offensive. Okay, I don't really like it. So I'm going to lock Mr. Hobbs out for 48 hours, or the longest one I had, the most recent one's for a full week. They had me out for 7 days. And so you're stopping and you're realizing, you're like, wow, this is really, really, really not cool. I mean, but it's a private format. I mean, at the end of the day, Facebook can make whatever rules they want to make. And that's the way I was raised. And I'm sure you were raised the same way, which is, hey, when you're in somebody else's house, you got to kind of follow by their rules. So that's why, again, I started my own format, because it's like I can say what I want. I can cuss what I want. I can post whatever pictures that I want to post in the body of my blogs. And at the end of the day, if you come to Observation Point, we can have these discussions, but, I understand that some of the more, some of the stuff that's a little bit more cutting edge, I have to sometimes wonder. It's like now, or like I have some friends who say, Chuck, if you got to blaze somebody, if you got to cuss them out, let us cuss them out, because we need you kicking this knowledge, and then we'll take the baton and we'll do the cuss out for you. So that always makes me laugh, too, because I appreciate that I have, again, a brilliant and very loyal following and what have you. And I try to give them my best every day, and they give me their best all the time too. And so that's a blessing, man. So, I mean, but yeah, that's been a frustration. That's something that's in my side. And just like we were talking about how your radio presence is going to blow up. When I blow up fully, man, I look forward to being able to be able to tell Mr. Zuckerberg that, that part of his platform really needs to get addressed in regards to one of the simple things should be that if a person is being suspended, that you should have an opportunity at least to be heard, where you can make your comments or give a rebuttal or if you got to give somebody a basic history lesson, which is, okay, this isn't racist, what I posted here, because number one, black people can't be racist, and that's a little bit deeper, more esoteric conversation altogether that they're not going to be ready for. But at a minimum, you can sit up and show, hey, the historical significance of this is X, Y, and Z, and then let it go, man. So, and the other one, I got suspended for a long period of time because a couple years ago when Israel was bombing what they claimed was Hamas fighters in Palestine, what wound up happening is I posted a picture of a number of Palestinian kids who had been killed in a mortar attack, and that I know who put me on that one. There was an older Jewish man that I thought I was friends with on a personal level here in Tallahassee, and what have you, who wrote me this scathing, how dare you compare what Israel's doing in Palestine to what Hitler did to the Jews in Germany, and he was just trying to go off, and I was going right back off on him, which is the same thing, which is injustice is injustice. It doesn't matter who's doing the killing. At the end of the day, I want to stop it, and I know that's who reported me that time, and they locked me up for 72 hours on that. I guess I was like, I guess Facebook does not agree with me that that posting these pictures of these young kids who were killed in a mortar attack is of political or historical or social significance. So at the end of the day, again, that's that man Zuckerberg's platform. I get it. I'm trying to do a little bit better job these days of still staying cutting edge, but at the same time trying to respect his house. So again, I put my wilder stuff on my own platform, and then we roll like that. You got me?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right, brother. It's a big elephant in the room. We getting close to the big elephant in the room, but I'm gonna lead into that elephant. But we're gonna talk about the Betsy DeVoe thing with the Bethune-Cookman.
Man,
that's your Florida, so that's your area, that's your hometown.
Man,
you know,
man, it is. It is funny because all right, down here, like being that born and raised FAMU Rattler, like I was, like I told y'all earlier, right? That's the natural rival for FAMU, Bethune-Cookman. All right, that's like for us Morehouse men, our rivals are Tuskegee and Clark, or when Morris Brown was playing football, Morris Brown, right? So you're not gonna see too many Morehouse men talk about their, go Tuskegee or go Clark when it comes to sports, because those are our rivals. Well, similar with respect to Bethune, but I'm not gonna lie, I was a Wildcat last week, man, when those kids did that, and it was one of those things where what really sent me through the roof on that was even there were a number of black people that were commenting that, oh, it's ignorant, and they showed no respect. But at the end of the day, let's talk about that respect. That Betsy DeVoe is showing no respect with the comments that she made about black colleges being the original forms of school choice. Not only was that historically inept and completely inane, it made us realize that she was ill-equipped for the position that she was about to gain. And that segues into something else, which is, obviously with this administration, these are in some of these positions, not in the Treasury, but in most of the positions, Trump has appointed people who are wholly inadequate for what it is that they have to do. But at the end of the day, when you have shown some loyalty to him, or if you have greased the palms and made sure that his campaign coffers are well, appointed, at the end of the day, that's who he's appointing. And so at the end of the day, when I recognized that this president down at BCU was actually going to go through with it, I knew that something bad was going to happen. I couldn't quite figure out what. I didn't know if the kids were going to walk out. I didn't know if there was going to be like a silent protest, like no clapping. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew it was going to be a disaster. But I also knew that the president down there is a Republican. And so there's no shock to me that this is what was going on, because about a year or so ago, he awarded our governor, Rick Scott, down here in Florida, who is a Republican and has definitely been a person who's drawn the ire of the black community time and again during his last 7 years in office. He lauded him with an award, I believe at graduation last year or maybe the year before. So I wasn't shocked that this is happening. And it has nothing to do, and that's what kills me about people with reading and comprehension. A lot of people who were trying to defend it immediately jumped to a conclusion that wasn't. Like, well, this is going to help BCU stay solvent financially. How? At the end of the day, neither Ms. DeVos nor her foundation had pledged any of those millions that they have at their disposal to Bethune-Cookman University. Right. And I'm being